Shalom friends, Rabbi Akiva with Jewish Vegan Life, and many people ask the very good and important question, why does it seem like God changes God's mind about what humans should eat? Right? In the first chapter of the book of Genesis, we see that God gives Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden a fully vegan diet, and that's not just for them, that's for humanity at the beginning of creation. And that will go all the way to the generation of Noah after the flood. And right after the flood, when Noah and his family comes out of the ark, God changes the diet and adds, right, and permits for the first time the eating of animals. Right? Before that, it was absolutely prohibited. So from Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, all the way to Noah, it was a purely plant-based vegan diet. And only after the flood, right, hundreds of years into Noah's life, can now he and his family and humanity after him eat animals for food. So how do we understand that change? Some people say, oh, it's a new ideal, it's a new world, this is what's the best now for humans. But when we look at certain sources, it doesn't seem that way. And it's very, very important to see these different teachings and see these different sources, because there must be a reason why God changed the diet, right? Now we need to remember, very importantly, why the flood came in the first place, right? The flood was a reaction to human behavior. There would not have been a flood if humans didn't go off the path, so to speak, right? The Torah says that there was lawlessness all around the land, right? That the humans had lost their way. They lost that original vision that was given to them through Adam and Eve, right? In the Garden of Eden, right? To direct their lives. So God clearly was starting the world all over again for a reason and brought the flood for a reason. And that's typically described as a moral and spiritual decline of humanity. Right? So one thing that people say about why did God all of a sudden permit animals change the diet, make that change, is because God, so to speak, was responding to where the humans were at now. They were no longer on the same moral and spiritual level, and God was relating to them on this new, right, unfortunately lowered level. Right, realizing that the ideal, the real ideal that God gave them at the beginning of the story, at the beginning of creation, was maybe a bit out of their reach for now, right? But listen to some of the commentaries about this, and let's see what they say. Right, Rav Kook, Rav Avram Yitzchak HaKohen Kook, he was the first chief rabbi of pre-state Israel. He wrote a lot about animals, animal welfare, eating animals, and he has very, very strong language when it comes to the fact that humans use animals for food, right? He lived from 1865 to 1935, and in his life, he was a vegetarian mostly, which at that time is a very, very impressive and basically not seen kind of thing. And he writes in one of his writings, he says, is it possible to conceive that a highly valued moral virtue, which was the original plant-based vegan diet, which had already existed as a part of the human legacy, should be lost forever? He's dealing with this question too. Why did God change the diet? Right? Is it gone forever? Is this the new ideal? Is this the new way forever? Rav Kook seemingly saying no. And he goes on. He says it was already established that the very same permission to eat meat granted after the flood was not intended to be the actual practice for all time. For how is it possible for a lofty and enlightened moral condition once instituted to vanish as though it had never been? And he writes about the future. And he believes that in the future we're going to go back to the original way of eating. And he writes, when humanity arrives at its goal of happiness and complete freedom, right, then human beings will recognize their relationship with all the animals who are their companions in creation, right? And he ends by saying that humanity will no longer be able to in any way brandish its sword over animal life, but they will dwell in safety together and savor the splendor of life. What a powerful quote, what a powerful idea given to us by one of Judaism's greatest rabbinical leaders, literally of the past many hundreds of years. Another contemporary Jewish thought leader, Rabbi Soloveitchik, who was the leader of the modern Orthodox movement in America. He wrote in a book that was published after his death called The Emergence of Ethical Man. He writes there is a distinct reluctance, almost an unwillingness on the part of Torah to grant humans the privilege to eat meat. Humans as an animal eater is looked at as ask ants by the Torah. There are definitive vegetarian tendencies in the Bible, he says. animal hunters and flesh eaters are people that lust. Of course, it's legalized. Okay, it was made legal after the flood, approved. Yet it is classified as ta'ava, lust, repulsive and brutish. Wow, it's a very, very strong words. And finally, I want to share with you one other source of another contemporary rabbi. He's still alive. He's a leading rabbi in Israel today, Rabbi Eliezer Melamed. And he wrote in his monumental book of Jewish law called Pnei the Pearls of Jewish Law, he writes, though it is permitted to eat animals, there are certain mitzvot through which the Torah guides us to treat them with mercy and kindness. And as a result, check this out, focuses us to be aware of the moral problem with eating meat in order to prepare us for the future time in which we will cease to eat meat. You see what's going on here? There's so many Jewish sources. There's so many Jewish leaders, rabbinical leaders, who are very aware of the fact that the original diet was the ideal diet. The second diet was a concession. It's kind of God giving in, so to speak, right, to where humans were holding morally and spiritually. But one day in the future, we're going to go back. We're going to return to the original vegan diet, the original vegan way of eating. It's an incredible thing that this is found in our Jewish tradition. Right? I always like to say, let's bring the future now. Right? Each and every single one of us that choose the plant-based vegan diet today, we're helping that future, that great future that the Jewish people have been longing for thousands of years. Right? Talking about, learning about, praying for. Each one of us, as we go vegan, as we go plant-based, and as we bring more compassion and thoughtfulness, mindfulness into our food choices and our lifestyle choices, we're helping that great future come today. All the best, my friends, and be well.